What's up and welcome back to another video, guys. Today I wanted to go over some new leaks regarding the 2025 LEGO Star Wars UCS Death Star, as well as go over all of the other information that we have about it, as it is still one of the most anticipated sets of 2025. So without further ado, let's get right on into this video. Now, starting off with the basic information about this set is the fact that it is set 75419. It has a release date of October 1st, 2025. The retail price in the US is going to be $999.99, coming in at 9,021 pieces, as well as having 38 minifigures, making this the largest LEGO Star Wars set ever, as well as the set with the most minifigures ever. And I think the minifigures are a good spot to start because that is where we have most of our new leaks. And I think starting off with these 38 minifigures is the best spot to start. Now, it is, worth noting that this is also going to include, different droids, astromech droids, mouse droids, other droids like that, gonk droids, which is also going to count toward that 38 minifigure total. And speaking of all of the different droids, it's actually the first leaked minifigure that we have is this protocol droid, coming out in this Death Star. And honestly, although it is a pretty generic minifigure, I think that it does look great. Looking toward all of the different printing on the legs as well as the torso, it is very minimal, but it does get a good level of detail across, and having the detailing as well as all of the printing on the legs. But I think most importantly, the mold for the head here looks amazing, and I think the yellow eyes really pop against this figure and make it look very good. Unfortunately, we cannot see the back of this minifigure at all, but I do still think that this is a great minifigure. Now, it's not 100% confirmed that this is going to be in the Death Star, but if it's coming out in 2025, then it's really the Death Star is the only option for this minifigure to come out in, and it would make sense that we'd see many protocol droids like this come out in the Death Star. But let's move on to the other two leaked minifigures, which are definitely a lot more exciting than this protocol droid. Now, the second minifigure that we have leaks of is our Admiral Ulen. We have actual photos of the torso that will be used on this minifigure, and it is, pretty much confirmed. It's going to be very, very similar to the poly bag that we received of Admiral Ulen back in the day. However, it is expected for him to have dual molded legs, which will definitely be something nice to see, as it was lacking on the previous version of the Admiral Ulen that we got. And if LEGO is able to update this minifigure to a better version, especially for a $1,000 set, I am very excited to see this. We've only ever seen Admiral Ulen and his Imperial are actually in general just twice. We saw him once in the poly bag, then we saw him in his Clone Wars style in the UCS Venator. So it's very nice to be getting another version of Admiral Ulen, although he is going to be locked behind that $1,000 paywall, not making him the most accessible minifigure, but maybe we'll see him reappear in a set in the future. But I do have high hopes for this minifigure. I think he is a great character, and I feel like it's going to be pretty much identical to the version that we saw in the poly bag. However, he will have an updated torso print, dual molded legs, and maybe a bit of change to the face. Now, next up, we have probably the most anticipated and most exciting set minifigure that we know is going to be in the $1,000 Death Star, and that is Director Krennic. Now, we've only ever seen Director Krennic once before, and when it comes to a LEGO Star Wars minifigure, in his shuttle back when the Rogue One sets came out, and it is very nice to be seen, get some representation for Rogue One as well as Andor in this set, and Director Krennic just overall being such a cool character. Now, when it comes to this minifigure, it looks to be a very good torso print, very similar to the one that we have previously seen, and that does make sense. And something that I think is worth bringing up is if you look to the left, the little kind of pack on the left side of the torso, or I guess it would be the right side in hands, but looking toward that, I think that does look like it does extend down to the legs for this minifigure. And if that printing does come down to the legs, and then assuming that this minifigure has dual molded legs like all of the officers in the $1,000 Death Star should, it would be very cool to see LEGO Star Wars actually printing on a pair of dual molded legs, because that's something that we don't see very often. So I think that could definitely be sick. I'm very excited to see this one. You can see there is some pretty good detailing with the rank badge and the two little Imperial clearance pens, and I'm assuming he's going to have his cape as well, as it is a very iconic part of his character. But I'm very excited to be seeing another version of Director Krennic. I think he's a sick character, one that is a pretty expensive minifigure. Now, unfortunately, if he is coming out in a $1,000 Death Star, it's not like this is going to, make him any cheaper or more accessible. If anything, there's going to be an even more expensive minifigure, so hopefully we see him appear in another set at some point in the future, but I am at least happy to be seeing him get another minifigure adaptation, and I am very excited about it. And now for the other of the minifigures, we only talked about 3, and there's going to be 38 of them, and there is a lot up for debate about what these 38 minifigures are going to be, but we kind of have a pretty good general idea, because obviously we're going to have the main Star Wars cast. We're going to have Luke, we're going to have Han, we're going to have Leia, we're going to have Darth Vader, we're going to have Stormtroopers, Death Star workers, even more officers, probably Palpatine, some of the Royal Guard, and probably, if I had to guess, we'd at least be getting quite a few different Stormtroopers and Death Star workers, and that's not even to mention astromech droids, as well as like gonk droids and all the other droids that we're going to be getting, like that protocol droid. I'm assuming we'll probably get more than one of different protocol droids, but I am very excited to see what the minifigure selection is. But there definitely is still a couple of options on the table when it comes to some more niche or named characters. Like we do have that Director Krennic as well as the Admiral Ulen, and there was that rumor going around that we would be seeing a Sly Moore as well as a Masamita in 2025 or 2026, and it would make the most sense that those would come out in the Death Star. Now unfortunately, I don't know what I think about that rumor. I really don't think that that rumor is something that has anything backing it, so I'm not going to get anyone's hope up. I would really doubt that we would see a Sly Moore or a Masamita appear in the $1,000 Death Star, but I do think it would be great to see them, don't get me wrong. I would love to be proven wrong, because I think they are great characters that would make great minifigures. I just wouldn't get your hopes up. But as for this Death Star minifigure lineup, I think it will definitely go down in history no matter what the minifigures are, because 38 minifigures, the most that we've ever seen in a Lego set, and I'm really excited to see what we could get. But let me know down below in the comments what minifigures you want to see in this Death Star, as well as which minifigures you are the most excited for. But let's take a look at the actual build for the Death Star. Now, as for the build for the actual Death Star, coming in at 9,021 pieces, a lot of people have some very high hopes, and this being the biggest Lego Star Wars set of all time is something that I'm very curious to see. Now, I'll get this out of the way. There was like a fake leak going around. I think that one was pretty obviously fake though, but I did have a couple people like reach out to me and ask like, is this real? And I figured may as well just address it just in case. I know that's an old thing, but just in case you're still out there and you come across it, that is definitely a fake photo. You just have to look at it a little closer, and it is pretty obvious. But going past that and onto the actual build for what the Death Star is going to be, pretty much confirmed now that it is going to be the Death Star 1 and not the Death Star 2. Which does make sense. I think the Death Star 1 is definitely more iconic than the Death Star 2, but I do think the Death Star 2 has a way cooler design than the Death Star 1, with like that kind of unfinished tapering off. I think looks so cool, and I'd love to see a new Death Star 2 set at some point in the future, but that's not the point right here. But when it comes to the actual build, what we know basically is that it is going to be built onto a Technic stand, and that Technic stand is going to go in and kind of like sprout into this set to actually hold this up, because coming in at 9,000 pieces, this is going to be a very heavy and big set, and the fact that the Death Star is, a sphere shape, going to be very hard to display. So when it comes to this display stand, it's going to have to be pretty strong to hold this set up, and I think it's going to be a key factor into this set. But onto the actual build, the thing that you're buying this set for is going to be the Death Star. And I think that the big thing when it comes to this is that it isn't going to have these removable panels. I see a lot of people, saying that it will, and that does make the most sense, and that does give you the best of both worlds, giving the fact that you'll be able to display your massive Death Star, as well as also being able to access the interior and recreate some of your favorite scenes. And from the looks of it, from all of the different leaks, it does look like we are going to be having a nice interior on this set. Now, we do know of a couple of interior spots, the main one being a hangar bay. That is kind of the only one that's 100% locked in, but based on that, we can definitely infer on some other things. But looping back to the hangar bay, I think that that is a great inclusion, and there is a rumor that there's going to be some sort of vehicle in this hangar bay as well, some sort of ship that you can launch out of it. Now, if I had to guess, I think that the best option would be that Vader's TIE Advanced. It's what we've seen in the previous Death Star playsets, so I think it'd be a great callback, as well as it being a long time since we've seen another Vader's TIE Advanced, and I think it does make a great ship to see in here. It also just being perfect given the size and the fact that the wings can fold up very well compared to another TIE fighter. Now, if we did have like a normal TIE fighter in there with the wings being as tall as they are, definitely wouldn't fit, but we'll loop back to that because we definitely are getting a TIE fighter in relation to this set as well, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I do think, as for this build and the other rooms that we could see, the couple of no-brainers are going to be, getting the iconic trash compactor scene. Now, we did see that as a diorama before, and if I had to, make a guess, I feel like it'd be very similar to that diorama as well. Maybe getting the Emperor's throne room also in there would make a lot of sense. This cell block, I think, would also be one that makes an appearance, as well as having Princess Leia's cell as well. So you could have your Luke Skywalker and Han come in there to save her, and I feel like those are the main ones. Now, they're also going to have to fill up that space with some other stuff as well. But honestly, I'm just very excited to see this. I am very curious to see how LEGO goes about building up this set, coming in at how heavy it is. I'm also very curious to see how this display stand comes into play. I know it's not the most interesting thing to many people, but for me, I'm pretty fascinated with how they're going to, make this set displayable and be able to be held upright and not fall over. So something that is very interesting to see. Now, as for other parts of the build, we're going to be getting a display stand as well as a display plaque. And the display stand we're going to have, I'm very curious to see if it's something that's going to hold the minifigures or not. Now we see this like looking toward the sail barge, we had that pretty large display stand for the minifigures, but 38 minifigures, if they keep it with that same design, it's going to be one long, it's probably going to be a couple of feet long for that minifigure display. So it brings a lot of people to think, is this going to be some sort of tiered display? We've never seen that for LEGO Star Wars before, but I think it would be perfect for this set to get kind of a tiered display build to display all of the different minifigures. Or are they just not going to include a minifigure display because there are so many minifigures and you're just going to be expected to be putting them inside of your build? Something that is very interesting to see and think about, but I am very excited for this build. I think there's a ton of different opportunities out there for what they could do, and to be honest, with October approaching pretty quickly, I have no doubt that we're going to be getting even more leaks and probably images very soon of what this Death Star build is actually going to look like. Now lastly, I want to talk about the gift with purchase that's going to be alongside this Death Star on release in October. And that is going to be the TIE Fighter gift with purchase. And this is honestly a bit disappointing for most people. This is rumored to come in at around 300 pieces, as well as having one minifigure. Still has not been brought down to a definitive piece count and minifigure count, but from what I've seen, it does look like it's going to be around 300 pieces, as well as having one minifigure. And the reason that I say that this is pretty disappointing is the fact that one, we've already had so many TIE Fighters recently out on shelves. I think there's one out on shelves right now in that 2-in-1 pack. So it's not it's not necessary for us to be getting another TIE Fighter, as well as the minifigure being something that is a TIE pilot to drive your TIE Fighter is something that's also not very interesting and something that we'll probably see in the Death Star already. So, it's not really a groundbreaking gift with purchase. I would have loved if LEGO stuck with the going theme of giving us buildable lightsabers as gift with purchases for these sets. Would have been the perfect opportunity to finally get, a Darth Vader's lightsaber or a Palpatine's lightsaber. Would have been so sick to see. Everyone loves the lightsaber builds, and I think this would be the perfect opportunity to have gotten a Darth Vader's lightsaber or something like that. Now, I did see, a couple people talking about this. Now, this is 100% a wish list. That's definitely not going to happen. Saying that it could be a TIE Avenger with Cassian Andor. As cool as that would be, it's not going to happen. It just wouldn't make any sense at all. But it would be really cool to see, don't get me wrong. But I do have a suspicion that we will be seeing that as a set on its own later on. But, as for this gift with purchase, something that is kind of disappointing. I would have loved to have seen something a bit more interesting, something a bit more niche that we hadn't seen before. And just getting another TIE Fighter, especially being how downsize is going to be at this gift with purchase scale, and the TIE pilot minifigure being one that is pretty boring that we've seen many times before, just doesn't get me super excited and definitely is not going to be driving me to buy this set on day one for $1,000. And that does it for all of the different information that we have about this set right now. But like I said earlier, with October approaching quicker and quicker, these leaks are going to be coming out very, very soon. And over the next couple of weeks, I have no doubt that we'll have more images of minifigures as well as a lot more information about this build. So if you want to be first notified when that information comes out, make sure to subscribe to this channel with the post notification on so you'll be first notified when I post that video. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know down below in the comments what you guys think about this Death Star. Let me know if you think that it's going to be worth $1,000 or not. $1,000, very expensive, the most expensive LEGO set ever, as well as being the one with the most minifigures. So I'm very curious to see it. I think it's kind of crazy, $1,000 for a LEGO Star Wars set, but I'm very curious to see it. And thank you all so much for watching. Stay safe. Drew signing out.